Here is definitely an alternative view coming up. Usually, all we ever hear in the United States is Israel's point of view when it comes to the history of Palestine and the Palestinian people. Well, here's how the Palestinians see it. Palestine actually is a land bridge between the three continents of Asia, Africa, and Europe. It's the center of the Arab world, a meeting point for Arab East and Arab West. The Palestinians were the descendants of the original inhabitants, the Amorites, Canaanites, Armenians, and Arabs. Since 3500 BC, Semites left the Arabian Peninsula in migratory waves and went to Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. In 2500 BC, one such group settled in Palestine, and these were called the Canaanites. Around 2000 BC, a number of states were established in the various lands reached by the migrants from the Arabian Peninsula. In Palestine, the state of Canaan was the first in history to be founded in that country. Around the year 1200 BC, the Hebrews, according to the Bible, led by Moses, fled from Egypt and crossed the Sinai Peninsula, settling in the area east of the Dead Sea. Under the leadership of Joshua, the Hebrews invaded the state of Canaan. The Hebrews were only able to occupy parts of Palestine and the area east of the Jordan River. Their kingdom was founded in the year 1020 BC by King Saul, once again according to the Bible. His successors, King David and King Solomon, ruled until 923 BC. Under the guidance of the original communities of the occupied areas, the invading Jews gained their first experience in agriculture and urbanization. Other parts of Palestine remained under the free control of the original inhabitants. In 923 BC, during the reign of Solomon, the Hebrew kingdom suffered a serious split. The kingdom of Israel took the northern part, while the south was dominated by the kingdom of Judea. In 722 BC, the northern kingdom was swept over by the Assyrians. In 586 BC, the Babylonians brought an end to the southern kingdom, and the Hebrew reign in Palestine was terminated. A very small number of Hebrews remained in the land as residents, most scattered out throughout the world. Throughout this period, though, the original inhabitants kept their continuous residence in Palestine. This was followed by a series of invasions. First, in 538 BC, the Persians invaded Palestine. Next, in 331 BC, the Greek invasion occurred under the Macedonian Alexander the Great. Then, of course, the Romans came in 64 BC. In 636 AD, the convergence of the area of the Great Arab Wave from the Arabian Peninsula took place. From that date on, the Arab identity of Palestine and the surrounding regions has been uncontestably reaffirmed. But the invasions were not over, at least the attempted invasions. In 1099, the Crusaders captured the city of Jerusalem, and the Crusader state of Jerusalem was proclaimed. Then in 1187, Saladin recovered Jerusalem and drove the Crusaders out of large areas of Palestine. Then another wave occurred. These were the Turks, the Ottoman Turks. They occupied Palestine from 1517 until 1917, 400 years. In 1917, the Arab people of Palestine and other Arab countries rose against the Ottomans and joined the ranks of the Allies during the First World War. The Allies pledged complete independence of all Arab countries when the war ended. However, also pledged to have a homeland in Palestine were the Jews. In 1897, the first Zionist Congress was convened in Switzerland under the leadership of Theodor Herzl. And that objective was the establishment of a national home for Jews in Palestine. After World War I, Palestine came under the British mandate as required and decided by the League of Nations. This was in 1920. However, 3 years before that, on the 2nd of November in 1917, the Balfour Declaration was issued. Balfour was the British Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and this indicated that the Zionist desire was given official sanction by the British, because the Balfour Declaration called for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Now, the Arab population in the country, in Palestine at this time, was considerably greater than that of the Jews. As this chart shows, in 1918, there were 644,000 Arabs there, whereas only 56,000 were Jews. And this continued, both groups continued to grow, so that in 1948 there were 1,380,000 Arabs in Palestine, compared with 700,000 Jewish inhabitants. And the ownership of the land was also very much in favor of the Palestinians at that time. The Jewish community constituted 8% of the total population, but owned 2.5% of the land in 1918. However, in 1948, following extensive Jewish immigration, their ratio increased to 33% of the population, and their ownership of the land was 5.67% of Palestine. This chart here shows the degree of immigration into Palestine of Jewish people from various parts of the world. Notice that there was a great increase from 1933, 34, 35, perhaps reflecting the drive for power of Hitler in Nazi Germany. Well, the Arab people rose in arms against the colonialism of the British Mandate back in 1948. This was put down with quite a bit of bloodshed. Some 50,000 Arabs were killed throughout the British Mandate over Palestine in this struggle. These maps show the partitions that were attempted of the area. The one at the left is the partition plan by the British Royal Commission. The Jewish section is shown in black, the Arab section in deep orange, the British section in light orange. And you can see over the years the different mixture of the types of plans which were conspired in by the British. In 1946, the Anglo-American Commission came up with this plan, showing increased British control of the area, once again in the light orange. Well, then there was the United Nations Commission having its own partition plan in 1947, which showed increased Jewish settled areas for settlement. And then the UN also later adopted a partition plan which gave the Jews considerably enlarged areas of the state of Palestine. Count Bernadotte had proposed one on the far right here in 1948, which partitioned the country and giving the Jews the smaller northern area and leaving the Arabs with the southern area. However, Bernadotte was assassinated. In the UN partition plan, the Arab section contained 725,000 Arabs, 10,000 Jews, whereas in the Jewish section, there were 497,000 Arabs and 498,000 Jews. In the internationalized area of Jerusalem, 105,000 Arabs, 100,000 Jews. On April 1948, a terrorist organization, Irgun, which was participated in by Menachem Begin, came into existence, and it staged attacks in various places all around Palestine where the Arabs were seeking refuge. And the British participated in this by giving equipment, arms to these terrorists. Prior to 15 May 48, they staged a series of attacks on unarmed Palestinian Arab civilians, and a great number of cities and villages were occupied and inhabitants were thrown out. As a result of this, the armies of the neighboring Arab states on the 15th of May entered Palestine to try to protect the rights and the lives of the Palestinian Arabs, but they were defeated. Meanwhile, the Israeli armed bands, terrorists, had occupied 78% of the landmass of Palestine. As a result of the 1948 war, Palestine was divided into three sections. The area of Israel, or 78% of the country, the West Bank, which was annexed by Jordan, 20.5% of the country, and the Gaza Strip, which was under Egyptian administration, that was 1.5% of the country. 750,000 Palestinian Arabs were uprooted from their homes, and they took refuge, mostly in really horrible living conditions in camps in the Gaza Strip, Jordan, Syria, or in Lebanon. On 5th of June, 1967, the famous June War occurred, in which Israel fought Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. The Jordan West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Syrian Heights, Golan Heights, and Sinai all fell into the hands of Israel. Israel still occupies all of these areas except the Sinai. The end result of all this has been that the Palestinians have been spread and dispersed all throughout the Arab world now, with Egypt having 35,000, the Gaza Strip containing 370,000. In Israel itself, there are 370,000. Lebanon contained 260,000 until the invasion. Syria, 170,000. West Bank, 705,000. Jordan, 960,000. Saudi Arabia, 25,000. Iraq, 15,000. And in other places, Kuwait has 170,000, Libya 7,000, the Arabian Gulf 18,000, Latin America 105,000, West Germany 15,000, and the United States 45,000. The people have been dispersed, kind of like the Jewish diaspora. It's no wonder that they are resisting, particularly through the PLO.